a presentation to young Paul, that would be appreciated. So we're sponsored by many good organisations. One's just inside there from one of the great Tasmanian organisations as a government business enterprise, the Spirit of Tasmania. Who came over on the boat? How was it? It was much more fun when the rebels went home, I can tell you. There was 400 of them on the boat. Hospitality nightmare 101. I'm told they were very well behaved. So yeah, look, I'm not sure when the charging station will go on the Spirit, but I reckon there's a sale on the way home, isn't there, for someone in the room? Just, hey buddy, I'll buy some charging stations. So I'm supposed to do a little promotion for the Spirit of Tasmania. And all I can say is that the first time I left Tasmania on the Spirit, you could hear the cars clanging around in the hole. And the last time I came over, the pizza and the Pinot Grigio was magnificent. And as the sun set and we stormed, steamed, electric out of the harbour, I just thought, this is the way to travel to Tasmania. No more queuing and getting x-rayed and, you know, there's no security coming in that way, you know? You're worried about hacking into the net and your car stopping. You can come on the TT line with whatever you like, I reckon. There's a freight equalisation subsidy too. Do you know that? We're sending our forests to the mainland in containers. Only because it's waste. No one's worked out how to turn it into pellets and burn it for energy. But if they could, the Spirit of Tasmania would burn it in the hole, wouldn't they? And then we would all think, wow, a zero emission. Oh, there's the man who invented I Want Energy. Hello, Rob. Nice to see you here today. That'll be an invigorating talk. So everyone's awake, everyone, you don't need to do the rub the shoulders? No, it's a silly, stupid game. When we do corporate and team things, we make paper aeroplanes far more appropriate. So all I can say is if you've got a friend, ring them up and tell them to book a trip to Tasmania and bring an electric car and stop at Ambers and go and see the RACT's magnificent accommodation all around the state. No doubt it's all getting converted with EV charging stations as of tomorrow afternoon. We all heard a lot about the cars, we heard a lot about the batteries, we've heard a lot about policy today, but the real question is, how are we going to fit it in? It sounds to me like it'll fit in just nicely. To talk about EVs in the electricity grid here in Tasmania, please welcome Paul Rayner, who is also our IT manager from TasNetworks. Ladies and gentlemen.
For the record, I'm not TasNetworks IT manager, I'm the IT manager here. I am actually one of those people that our elected member for Braddon referred to this morning, the nerdy propeller head. That is me to a T. I'm kind of disappointed he said that because I was looking forward to saying it about myself, but never mind, here we are. So, thanks John, you've basically summarised what I want to talk about very well. How is the electricity network going to handle electric vehicles? I don't know whether to be looking forward to it or absolutely scared. There's a general perception that the electricity industry wants as many electric vehicles as we can get because it's more revenue. It depends where you sit in the electricity industry as to... Oh, hang on, I forgot to do the IT for my own talk. Oh, I'm a dad, I've got 3 kids. Dad jokes little cows come home. It's when you say them a second and a third time and you still think they're funny, that is when they become dad jokes.
Like your electrons will make your towers fall over because renewable energy electrons are heavier.
Yeah. Okay, so it depends where you are in the electricity industry as to whether electric vehicles are a 100% good thing or well, we think they're good, but we're also a little bit scared of it situation. So this diagram is an attempt to explain something that's not necessarily that well understood by the general community, and that is the makeup of the electricity industry. The national electricity rules, which are basically the laws that define the electricity industry, they define 3 basic companies that operate in the electricity industry. And remember, these laws were set up under an old model where electricity flowed one way, and it's all got to be looked at again now. We have generators, they make the power. Christian represented one of those. We have electricity network companies. They own, I work for one of them, TasNetworks. We own the poles and wires that basically get the power from the generators, like that beautiful transmission tower going over the Mersey River. Isn't it a beautiful engineering marvel? Yeah, that's my nerdy propeller head coming out. And then, of course, there's all the distribution wires that go around the streets getting the electricity to our homes and businesses. And then the third entity is retailers. Now, retailers own nothing except the computer that can print out a bill. And to understand that, you've got to understand, this is the physical infrastructure, but the financial way it works is not that the generators sell the power to the network companies who then sell it to the retailers who sell it to you. It doesn't work that way. The generators sell power into a market, and that is bought by the retailers and on-sold to you. Us network companies, we're essentially just the transport provider. And just like, say, a farmer grows potatoes, wants to get them to the supermarket, he enters into a contract with the supermarket to sell the potatoes. He doesn't sell them to the truck driver who then on-sells them to the supermarket. So the other thing that's not well understood is it actually costs hundreds of millions of dollars a year to maintain an electricity network, because things get old and they wear out like wooden poles, eventually rot. We have things called storms and cyclones that knock things over, and it costs a lot of money to keep an electricity network operating. So what the retailer is actually doing is the retailer is paying generators for the electricity, and then they're also paying network companies to, sorry, yes, that's the right way. They're also paying the network companies to keep the network operating, and then they are billing all of us, the end users, for both of those services. But in our electricity bills, we don't see those separate components. We just see X dollars or X cents per kilowatt hour. And in Australia in general, the network company costs actually make up roughly 50% of electricity bills. Okay, so that's sort of the who's who in the zoo, but you need to understand it for the rest of it to make a little bit of sense and understand who I represent and from the network company. Now I'm going to take a step quite aside from that. And as an engineering nerd, I've made a lot of graphs in my time, but this would be one of the weirdest and probably the most fun I've had a chance to make. It is an attempt at looking how electricity usage occurs in a house. We get up in the morning. In a place like Tasmania where it's cold, we'll turn on a heater. In my case, my wife will have a shower and then she'll dry her hair afterwards. We'll have breakfast, and so we get this morning usage of electricity. A washing machine will come on. Then in our case, kids go off to school. There's not that much electricity usage during the day. Kids come home from school. First thing that goes on, of course, is either a computer or a TV. I give up, so I boil the kettle. So there's a bit more electricity. And then, it's Tasmania, it's colder in the winter, so the heater comes on, another TV or another computer. I've got to cook dinner, microwave, oven. It's dark now, we need the lights on. And so as the evening progresses, we get more and more electricity demand. And then as the evening tapers off, okay, we'll have the dishwasher on after dinner. I'll really give up, I'll boil the kettle again. And then eventually everyone goes off to bed and the kids put their phones on the charger, and that's it for the night. So that's graphically typical household electricity use. I officially denoting myself as a very typical family. Okay, that's it in symbols. That's it as a real nerdy engineer's graph. This was a real customer, I don't know who, someone in Hobart. I just got a graduate engineer to download some data for me, but it exemplifies it perfectly. Morning peak, not so much during the middle of the day. Evening peak, this customer's got a little bit of overnight load. It was August, so they probably left the heater on overnight. Same customer next day. And there's a different customer altogether. In this case, the load's gone negative. This customer's obviously got solar on their roof. But the critical thing that we see is peak in the morning, peak in the evening, not much during the day, not much overnight. And okay, there's exceptions. You know, perhaps if there's a sole occupant house who's a shift worker, you might see a different pattern. But generally, across the board, 99% of houses fall into this category. Just needs breathe. What we find throughout Australia is the evening peak tends to dominate, especially in warmer cities where there's a high prevalence of aircon in the summer. In Tasmania in the winter, sometimes the morning peak can dominate over the evening on a cold morning, but generally it's the evening peak that electricity network companies are more concerned about. Now, I didn't really talk much about the axes, but being an engineer I have to. Left-hand axis is kilowatts, and the reason it's sort of from 0 to 6 is the local network that goes around the streets and supplies all the houses is typically designed to supply about 5 or 6 kilowatts per house simultaneously. Now, some houses might be using a bit less at the time, others will be using more, but on average, if we assume everyone's using about 6 kilowatts at the time of the evening peak, then that's what we design the network to cope with. All right, so that's typical. There's 3 houses, or 2 houses over 3 days in August. They didn't have electric vehicles. So what are those lines going to look like if, say, they were driving the new Leaf or the BMW i3 and they plug in when they get home? It's off the scale, basically. Put simply, the local part of the network is going to be the first bit that gives once... I'm not talking about when everybody's got an electric car, but when we get to this stage that it's normal to see an electric car. Like at the moment, not everybody's got, say, a Toyota Corolla, but it's normal to see one. Now, once we get to the stage that it's normal to see an electric car or 2 or 3 or 4 on every block, then we'll be seeing enough houses with these spikes of evening peak that it's going to start causing problems if people are all coming home from work and plugging in at the same time. For those of us with a technical background, another thing to think about is what's an example? Like a stove, for example. When I'm boiling a pot of water on the stove, the hot plate is on, you know, for, I don't know, 5 minutes until the water boils. Then you turn it down to a simmer, and then it's going on and off and on and off. So over time, it's not consuming that massive amount of power. When it's on, yes, it might be, say, 4 kilowatts, but when it's off, obviously, it's not consuming anything. So over time, it's averaged out, even though it's a stove, to something a bit lower. An electric car, if it's got, you know, a 6 or 7 kilowatt charger, I believe Teslas are sold with a 7 kilowatt charger, i3s, it's the same thing. 11? Single or 3-phase? Okay. Okay, we're getting into too much detail. Doesn't matter. The point is, you put it on, it consumes a lot of power, more than anything else in your house, and it stays on until the car is almost full, and then it starts to ramp down again, which is quite different. So the first things that are going to give is the local part of the network. So Hobart, just like Devonport, has glorious weather. I just walked along the street last week and took these photos. So what are we looking at here? My street, the wires up the top are what we call the high voltage, so they're 11,000 volts. Some cities are 11, some are 22,000, some are 33,000. But they're all, occasionally on every 20th pole, you'll see one of these boxes, which is a transformer that takes that high voltage, steps it down to the 230 volts that goes into your houses. And it's these transformers which we need to design the network for to cope with that, or we have in the past, designed the network to cope with that 5 or 6 kilowatts on average from everybody during peak time. And it's not going to take too many people all charging when they get home before they'll get a little bit hot. And the problem is we don't really know. They're just transformers that sit there. There's no fancy monitoring in them or anything like that. We know transformers have burnt out when a customer rings us and tells us the power's off. It's as simple as that. The other thing is these 230 volt wires. When the load gets really high, the voltage at the households actually goes down, and the other thing we'll see is people ringing up and saying something must be wrong, the oven's taking too long, or my TV's blown out because, well, as it turns out, the voltage has been too low. So it's at the very local street level. Have you ever thought of electric? There's people in here who could help you, you know. And therapists too. Yeah, so that's what's going to give first. I've just lost my train of thought completely now. No, it's all right. I'll just look at the boat for a minute. Well, I'll go to the next slide. Oh yeah, I remember now. So the traditional thing that network companies have done, or one of the common solutions, okay, we want to stop people using too much power during that evening peak. Well, what if we make an off-peak time, a two-rate tariff, where electricity gets cheaper at, say, 10 o'clock at night, and then people would, say, dishwasher's a classic example, instead of putting it on as soon as I finish dinner, let's wait until 10 o'clock, or put a timer on the dishwasher so it comes on automatically. Very good solution, it generally works. So what happens then if we do that with electric vehicle charging? We've kind of still got a problem, because the Leaf or the BMW, they're still charging at more than 6 kilowatts that the network's been designed for. And okay, it's only a little transformer. The problem is, in little Tasmania, there's 34,000 of those transformers around the state. So it would cost huge amounts of money if we had to go and replace them and upgrade them. And that would mean the cost of electricity will go up. And believe it or not, we as a network company do not want the cost of electricity to go up. I'll just give a little plug for TasNetworks here while I've got a microphone and no one can stop me. Our network charges actually went down on the 1st of July this year. So there you go. In fact, Tasmania is the only state where standing offer residential charges went up by only 2%. And our standing offer domestic rate is still cheaper than it was 4 years ago. So move to Tasmania. All right, so the ultimate solution to this is going to be to somehow, as has been alluded to by a couple of presenters already, somehow stagger the charging so it occurs during the wee hours of the morning when everybody's asleep. And we've really got two options, or even both. Either stagger it, so house A charges, then house B, and then house C, or even if you can encourage people to charge at a slower rate. So charge for longer, but drawing less current. The network would be able to handle that. Now, the one thing that we know is unless there is a financial incentive, people won't do it. We as humans will do whatever's most convenient for us. And so the only way to get people to be doing this en masse, yes, I know we're the early adopter propeller head nerds, we might do it, but Joe Average won't. So we're going to have to think of solutions whereby it's actually cheaper, people see a financial incentive to be able to charge during the night. Now, Rob Manson's next. He may even allude to some of these things in terms of batteries. I don't know what Rob's going to say. I'm hoping he mentions something about it. And then with smarter technologies, smart meters, those sorts of things, the technology's there to be able to say, righto, charge overnight. Let the network control when you charge. We'll will guarantee that you'll be charged by morning, and it will cost you only like 10 cents a kilowatt hour. If you want to charge at peak time, well, it's going to be 30. If people charge when it's most convenient for them, it's going to cause problems for them. Problems for the network, and that's going to drive costs up for everybody. If, on the other hand, the electricity industry can provide incentives so that people charge at a time that the network is lightly loaded, either at a slower rate or automatic staggering of the charges, then the existing network can handle it. And in the utopian case, if the existing network can handle it and we don't even have to upgrade anything, a higher volume of electricity is now being sold because everyone's gone and bought an electric car, and that means the per unit price will actually go down. Okay, that's it. I hand back to you, John.
Thanks, Paul. Your chocolate is just there in the sun. Did anybody notice that Paul used the word utopia? And I just don't know about it having anything to do with it. If you haven't watched the show, it's hilarious.